On behalf of the NLL Board and the entire NLN family, congratulations again, George. It is now our pleasure, mine particularly, to introduce again to you our keynote speaker, Dr. George Thibault, a man who truly needs no further introduction since we just introduced him. Today, he will speak to humanism in the health professions and in society. Again, join me in welcoming back to the stage and podium, Dr. George Thibault.
Thank you, Rumay, for that spectacular introduction and award. I told her she told you more than you needed to know. But receiving this President's Award from the National League for Nursing, the oldest nursing organization in the country, is indeed a special honor for me. It is particularly meaningful to be recognized by this organization and by my nursing colleagues because of our shared commitment to excellence in nursing education and nursing leadership as essential factors in improving the health of all of our population. It is this common goal that leads me to the subject of my talk today: humanism in the health professions and in society. What is humanism? Webster's dictionary defines humanism as any system or mode of thought or action in which human interests, values, and dignity predominate. Let me repeat that. Human interests, values, and dignity predominate. Humanism as a philosophical movement began in the Renaissance. In emphasizing the centrality of humans and human experience, it was a reaction to the theism of medieval scholasticism, which placed God at the center of all things and emphasized supernatural forces rather than natural forces. This powerful revolutionary premise that human interests, values, and dignity are dominant was the driving force for the art, literature, and creativity of the Renaissance. It celebrated the understanding of the natural environment and of the human experience. It stressed the essential goodness and perfectibility of human beings and the importance of reason to solve human problems. 2 centuries later, humanism became the intellectual underpinning for the Enlightenment. Philosophers John Locke, David Hume, and others used humanistic principles to emphasize human liberty, human rights, and social justice as the essential elements in the social contract that is the legitimate basis of government. The U.S. Declaration of Independence is a product of the Enlightenment, and it is a humanistic treatise. The Enlightenment belief in the power of reason unleashed the burgeoning of science in the 18th and 19th century that has continued into the 21st century. Steven Pinker's recent book, Enlightenment Now: The Case for Reason, Science, Humanism, and Progress, documents with extensive data that the state of the human condition in the world is continuing to improve because of the continued application of the Enlightenment principles of reason, science, and humanism, which go hand in hand. In the 20th century, the principles of humanism underlie the development of the liberal democracies, which became the ascendant political order of the Western world, defeating the rival philosophies of fascism and communism. However, recent events, here and abroad, caution us that we cannot take that ascendancy for granted. Given that background, what does humanism in the health professions mean? And what are the implications of making a commitment to humanism in the health professions? The health professions have always been regarded as a humanistic enterprise. The ethical principles of the Hippocratic Oath from the 5th century BC are humanistic in that they call for putting patients' interests first. The great medieval physicians and healers were steeped in the humanities. From the Renaissance on, there has been the ideal of the healer as one who was learned in the humanities as well as the sciences. In the 19th century, the founder of modern nursing, Florence Nightingale, was a humanist, steeped in the scientific method of the Enlightenment, understanding and teaching the power of observation and measurement to optimize the care of each individual. She described nursing as a, quote, a progressive art such that to stand still is to go backward. The explicit attempt to renew the link between humanism and the health professions in recent decades was motivated by the desire to humanize healthcare in the face of dehumanizing forces that were taking it away from its roots. These forces included the corporatization of healthcare, the increasing role of business and finance, the fragmentation of patient experiences, the reduced time for clinical encounters, the increasing reliance on technology as a substitute for human interaction, and a de-emphasis in the humanities in the education of health professionals. All of these dehumanizing forces were leading to a general decline in both patient and professional satisfaction. This work to humanize the health professions follows the principles of humanism, putting patients at the center of focus, promoting better understanding of the human experiences of both patients and clinicians, deriving professional goals and activities from the real needs of patients, applying reason to better solve problems in healthcare, and using science to devise ways to better help patients maintain health. It is important to re-emphasize that, consistent with its historical roots, humanism has never been nor should be seen as anti-scientific. In accordance with these humanistic principles, we strive to make the health professions the model for humanism in our society. This is absolutely essential work that is more important than ever. But we as professionals and as members of this society have an even larger challenge that goes well beyond the mandate in charge to humanize the health professions. It is not just healthcare that is threatened by being dehumanized. Our country at large is turning against the principles of humanism that have been its underpinning since its beginning. Political events in the United States and abroad threaten the principles of humanism. And the 2016 U.S. election was both a symptom of and an accelerant of this anti-humanism trend. The trend towards more autocratic and nationalistic philosophies that are not in line with the principles of humanism has been documented in the rise to power of autocratic leaders in Russia, Turkey, Hungary, Poland, and Brazil, and more, in the emergence of strong nationalistic parties in many Western European countries. These trends antedated our 2016 elections, and there clearly are differences, but there is also much commonality about the anti-humanistic rhetoric, and behaviors and resulting policies that are not consistent with humanistic principles. Many anti-humanistic behaviors are becoming more prevalent today and are being legitimized by some leaders. Prejudice against individual groups based on race, ethnicity, or religion is anti-humanistic because it denies the value of each human being. Threats to restrict freedom of speech and other individual liberties are anti-humanistic because they deny individual rights that are the underpinning of humanism. An absence of truthfulness is anti-humanistic because humanism is based on rational thought and speech. The denial of scientific facts is anti-humanistic because humanism celebrates science to improve the human condition. Bullying and insulting behaviors are anti-humanistic because they demean the value of each individual and threaten the ideal of the full development of each human. As leaders and professionals in our society and as defenders of humanism, we must call out these behaviors as we see them in our leaders, in our social interactions, and even in our own profession. Sadly, these behaviors are now linked to policies and positions that are anti-humanistic and that are a direct threat to our patients and to our values. There are many examples of these policies and positions, and the list appears to grow daily. But to give some examples, rolling back the expanded access to care of the Affordable Care Act is anti-humanistic and is a denial of a fundamental right. Unreasonable restrictions on immigration are anti-humanistic because they deny the value of all humans and deny the society the benefit of diversity, talent, and innovation. Separation of children from their families is anti-humanistic because it is a denial of a basic human need. Failure to enact reasonable gun safety legislation is anti-humanistic because it leads to preventable human harm and suffering. Denial of the safety and efficacy of vaccines is anti-humanistic because it is anti-science and leads to human harm and suffering. Denial of climate change is anti-humanistic because it denies scientific fact with direct negative consequences for optimal human health and development. Denial of science in general is anti-humanistic and undermines the public confidence in our institutions in their ability to promote progress on their behalf. Others could add to this list of anti-humanistic policies and positions that directly threaten our patients and our values. If we are to have humanism in health professions, we must play a role in addressing, mitigating, and reversing these policies which threaten to dehumanize our society and run counter to our greater than 200-year national tradition of humanistic values. More than 2 decades ago, we began the discussion in the health professions of our responsibility being not only to our patients, but to improve the systems of care in which we work, making care more reliable, accessible, equitable, and affordable for all the humans we serve. This humanistic professional value was embedded in the now classic Institute of Medicine report, To Err is Human. And while this task of improving our systems of care is by no means done, we now must add to it another task, and that is to help make our society at large more humanistic. We will do this by the example of how we conduct ourselves as compassionate professionals in our individual patient encounters. We will do this by continuing to reform our systems of care to make them more humanistic. But we also must bear witness to threats to humanism that are all around us and that are having a negative impact on the lives of our patients and the values of society in which we function as professionals. We cannot achieve the goals of humanism in the health professions within an anti-humanistic society. Now, this may seem like too much to expect of us. We are already overburdened, sometimes overwhelmed, with our professional tasks. And it is certainly true that we cannot take on every anti-humanistic issue or devote our time and energy to a national political campaign to restore humanism. But I do believe that by speaking to these issues in the appropriate forum, we will reaffirm our professional identities and avoid victimization or complicity by our silence. President Kennedy frequently quoted Dante that the hottest places in hell are reserved for those that in the time of moral crisis maintain neutrality. We will be aided in this effort by creating communities of like-minded health professionals and by finding partners in other societal sectors. Such a renewed sense of purpose in defense of humanism can be an antidote to professional ennui and disillusionment. And there is a very important role for educators in providing the substrate and the tools for this expanded vision of humanism in the health professions. We must see that our educational processes afford more opportunities to express and develop humanism. These opportunities include caring for underserved populations in the United States and abroad, more focus on the social determinants of health, and a strengthening of the social contract between our academic medical centers and the societies we serve. I commend the Arnold P. Gold Foundation and the Beyond Flexner Alliance for their important work in these areas, but there is much more that needs to be done. We also must support the study of humanities in health profession education so that future health professionals better understand the human condition and the human experience. And we must create opportunities in our education for the discussion of policy, philosophy, and advocacy so that our graduates are equipped to be fully engaged as humanistic citizens. And of course, we must continue to work hard to assure that all of our learning environments model humanistic behavior. Let me close with a story. There was a general practitioner of medicine in a small rural town. He cared for the residents of the town and the farms and hamlets in the surrounding 10 to 15 miles. He made house calls, delivered babies, performed minor surgery, dispensed medicine, and tended to the physical, emotional, and social needs of his patients. His office was in his home. No patient was ever turned away. Patients were charged on a sliding scale, and some paid with produce or by performing home repairs. In this small town, he was also the public health officer, the school doctor, and served as chairman of the school board. Unfortunately, he died at the age of 49 of a myocardial infarction. His patients lined the street for 2 days to say goodbye and thank you as he was laid out in his home. That GP was my father. The town was Chittenango, New York. The year of his death was 1962. I had just finished my freshman year in college studying philosophy. Chittenango was where I first learned about humanism in the health professions, and I've carried it with me throughout my whole career. Each of us has our own touchstone for humanism, an experience, a role model, in inspirational writing. It is time for each of us to draw on that touchstone and make it more real in our daily lives. Let it inform every encounter with a patient. Let it inform the work within each health system to make it more humanistic, and let it inform how each of us expresses our citizenship. Let us use our expertise and professional standing to speak out on issues that are important to our values and important to our patients' lives. Let us be more politically active, supporting candidates with humanistic values. We can make a difference, and we can help have our society be more aligned with the principles of humanism. But we must be intentional in doing this and make our case on principles, not on personality. We must vote and urge others to vote in order to have a truly representative democracy. We are citizens of our society, and we must play a role in addressing the anti-humanistic forces that are gaining in strength. Let me conclude by reasserting the central observation. It will be hard to have humanism in the health professions if there is no humanism in the world around us. Human interests, values, and dignity must predominate. Human interests, values, and dignity must predominate. Imagine what we could do if we all united around that principle. Thank you.